called several times. I missed that. Can you reinstitute that and get it going
All right,
again?
I'll tell you what.
I'm getting rusty here, Hannity.
If I could manage my show better and get the mail in and get the Hate Hannity hotline in, I'd be a better host.
Hannity, great show tonight, as always.
All right. Have a great show.
Right. I'm Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle from Washington tonight. A remarkable, yet, I don't know, it's a totally predictable turn of events in the Jussie Smollett case. The Empire actor now officially indicted on a felony charge for filing a false police report. A live update from the ground and shocking new video from Chicago just moments away. Also tonight, less than a week after Trump's new AG was confirmed, reports that Mueller's investigation could be coming to an end next week. Wow. We have exclusive reaction there. Plus, what do John Wayne and Barack Obama have in common? They're both part of a can't miss Seen and Unseen with Raymond Arroyo. But we begin with a breaking news alert out of Chicago. The Cook County State's Attorney has just filed a felony charge against Smollett with felony disorderly conduct. That's what it's called, for filing a false police report. Mike Tobin joining us now from outside Chicago PD with all the details. Mike.
Well, you just stole a little bit of my lead there, but Jussie Smollett, star, singer, and now suspect, charged with that disorderly conduct, a felony in this case. We've got a release from his legal team, reading as follows. Like any other citizen, Mr. Smollett enjoys a presumption of innocence, particularly when there's been an investigation like this one, where information, both true and false, has been repeatedly leaked. Given these circumstances, we intend to conduct a thorough investigation and mount an aggressive defense. The Osundario brothers, once considered potential suspects, testified for 2.5 hours before a grand jury today. Their attorney says they were paid in the alleged hoax, but the payment doesn't fit the narrative that we know. She says the brothers are speaking to investigators because they had a change of heart and determined that the truth needs to come out. What is their disposition right now? They've been through a lot.
They've been through a lot, absolutely. I think the American people has been through a lot, too. So they were eager to tell their story.
And Gloria Schmidt, the attorney, says that Jussie Smollett must have trouble sleeping at night and he needs to come clean. Chicago police say they are in touch with Smollett's legal team and they are negotiating terms for his, or they say they're negotiating a reasonable surrender for him to turn himself in. He's got a bond hearing at 1:30 tomorrow. Laura?
Mike, thanks for that report. We'll be following it all throughout the night. We really appreciate it. And now, Victimhood U. That's the focus of tonight's angle. As we see polls showing young people slouching towards socialism, it got me thinking, why is this happening? Why would they embrace a system that has proven itself such a colossal failure? Think about it. A contraction of liberty, a scarcity of goods, scarce medicine, and power concentrated in the hands of governmental authorities. Well, socialism chic can, I think, be in part attributed to its new spokesman, people like Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Because the key to understanding this fanatical fad is that when you're a socialist, facts are kind of irrelevant. Now, why? Well, they're irrelevant because the ends, a supposedly more equal society, justify the means.
If people want to really blow up one figure here or one word there, I would argue that they're missing the forest for the trees. I think that there's a lot of people more concerned about being precisely, factually, and semantically correct than about being morally right.
Okay, but what is the source of your morality, AOC? Well, it's morality according to whom? Marx, Engels, someone else? And I thought we weren't supposed to impose our morality on others when it came to issues like life or marriage, but when a liberal claims moral superiority, all the rules change. Now consider the situation on campuses today. Free thought and free speech have been marginalized or altogether obliterated. And they're marginalized or obliterated in favor of forced adherence to the ever-changing leftist credo. A credo where Marxism trumps the free market and trigger warnings beat down free thought. The Young America's Foundation just released a study of courses that are being offered at some Ivy League colleges. A few of these are real howlers. Check them out. Last semester at Columbia, you could have taken a class called Fascism, Aesthetics and Politics. The election of President Donald Trump has renewed interest in the examination of fascism as an ideology, as a political movement, and as a form of governance. Last fall at Cornell, students took Histories of the Apocalypse, from Nostradamus to Nuclear Winter. Brexit, immigration, and the election of Donald Trump have all been recently heralded as signs of an imminent apocalypse. Very understated. And then at Harvard, why not pay $70,000 a year in tuition to study, quote, journalism in the age of Trump? President Trump's declared war on fake news, his attacks on the press as enemies of the people, as well as secular changes in technology and the ways in which the news is produced and delivered have combined to undermine the very notion of truth. The political indoctrination is one aspect of what universities are doing to mess with young minds, but there's a lot more. Parents also pay hundreds of thousands of dollars in total for their kids to marinate in an entitled, it's kind of a pseudo-intellectual grievance culture. Professors and administrators have founded their own type of religion, whose adherents are required to embrace manufactured anger and complete oppression. Now consider the case of a small school called the Evergreen State College. Documentarian Mike Nana captured this rise of leftist authoritarianism in real time. And he interviewed professors who could see the ideology of racism and white privilege suffocating free expression on campus. Now, check this out. These are actual faculty members of Evergreen State College.
Racism exists today in both traditional and modern forms. Racism is an institutionalized, multi-layered, multi-level system that distributes unequal power and resources between white people and people of color, as socially identified, and disproportionately benefits whites. The racial status quo is comfortable for most whites. Therefore, anything that maintains white comfort is suspect.
Well, these professor activists have a very ambitious agenda and a very dark, ominous view of life in 21st century America.
We galvanize white privilege in the form of curriculum, exalting white canons of fine art, literature, theory, and scientific thinking. More so, if we don't examine how those canons are made.
Well, these people sound like they're cult members, not faculty members.
I believe Evergreen can create a more vibrant community of anti-racist activists on our staff and faculty and among our students, if we break our 45-year pattern of occasionally turning toward these issues briefly with deep but short-run commitment that fades, and fades.
I'm fading. Okay. It doesn't matter that students or faculty on campus don't really show signs of racism, or it doesn't matter that they engage in racism, because to this thinking, racism is just in the air. It's in the water of our country's founding. So anyone who fails to stand and fight against this oppressive backdrop is guilty. So minorities in this view are cast as perpetual victims, and the universities then reward them for wearing the I'm oppressed chips on their shoulders. Here's just a sample of what the groupthink sounds like. This is a meeting of the Evergreen State College Equity Council, and the guest speaker, Robin D'Angelo.
There's a sea of people engaged in a shared delusion, and then there's a few people witnessing the delusion and isolated, unable to exchange words or anything. That sense of being alone in a crowd is profound.
The anti-racist frame understands racism as a system. While individual players partake in it, it's not dependent on individual players. Right? It's embedded in the fabric of the society, and it functions to ensure an unequal distribution of basically everything between people of color as a whole and white people as a whole.
Now, note the almost religious certitude that these radicals possess. This is their religion, because they are the oracles, and anyone who does not accept their ideology, their religious fervor is simply unjust. You're a racist if you don't accept it. And thus, you must be resisted and driven into silence on a college campus at all costs. This is a kind of mental totalitarianism, and it's not just confined to faculty meetings or classrooms. Students are being brainwashed into accepting this groupthink. Now, a few weeks ago, Dinesh D'Souza spoke at our alma mater of Dartmouth College and was greeted this way.
Racist! Go home, 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 racist!
That's very tolerant, isn't it? Now, how can they get away with treating an Indian, an immigrant, and a person of color, let alone an alum of the college, that way? Well, because as a conservative, Dinesh does not count. He doesn't buy into their oppression narrative, so he's just as guilty as a white, unwoke lacrosse player who grew up in Greenwich, who goes to an Ivy League school. And my friends, this victimhood obsession, of course, has infected now society at large, because they want us all to live on their college campus. Think about this Jussie Smollett case. Even when his wild allegations couldn't be substantiated, even after it appears that Smollett himself organized the attack that he initially blamed on MAGA-hatted wearing racists, and even after he was charged with filing a false police report, in the eyes of these folks, none of it matters. He ultimately gets a pass in their eyes because the story fit the left's narrative. And he is morally right in their eyes, even if kind of confused and sad regarding these current set of facts. And regardless of facts anyway, Trump and his followers are, according to them, violent racists. And if you disagree with that, well, you're a racist yourself. Playing by the university rule book, well, dissent is not allowed. And liberal victims, fake or otherwise, are entitled to mercy. 20th Century Fox issued a statement today reading, Jussie Smollett continues to be a consummate professional on set, and as we have previously stated, he is not being written out of the show. We'll see if that changes with the news tonight. I'm telling you, redemption is almost limitless when you are a liberal, I guess. The governor and lieutenant governor of Virginia know all about that. Roseanne, though, wow, she's still waiting for her letter of apology. As parents, we have to use these examples to remind our children of what is expected of them. Teach them to respect themselves and, of course, their fellow man. To halt the spread of this victimhood menace, we have to teach kids to be self-reliant and self-sufficient. Because if you're a victim, you're going to need to be saved. And the left believes your savior is the government. I say no thanks. I'll leave that to Jesus Christ. Thank you very much. But we have all, put this all aside for a moment, we have all been given gifts by the Almighty. A soul, a heart and mind, capable of changing things for the better and making good choices out of our own free will. And when you start to cling to victim status, you're just giving away your power. You're letting others define you. We Americans, we're a lot better than that. And our kids deserve better than what they're being fed on college campuses. So let's expose the frauds and encourage more personal responsibility. And I bet we'll all be happier. And that's the angle. All right, we want to get back to this breaking news on Jussie Smollett now. And what do community leaders in Chicago think about their city being used as part of a hoax? And this kind of fits into the victimhood mentality we've been talking about tonight. And where do the Chicago police go from here? To help us answer those questions, we're joined from Chicago by Tio Hardman. He's the CEO of Violence Interrupters and former LAPD detective and Fox News contributor Mark Furman. Tio, I want to start with you. Now, you're saying that community leaders, most of them knew from the start that this was fake. So why were so many national politicians, top leaders in the Democrat Party, and celebrities fooled?
Well, I was born and raised in Chicago, and I know violence quite well here in Chicago. So I was one of the first community leaders that put this out on one of my LinkedIn posts. I wrote a post about it because nobody really, if you get beat up for real in Chicago, nobody gets pimp slapped in Chicago. Nobody gets a pass, in other words. And stories about people pouring bleach on somebody, that doesn't happen in Chicago. And making a comment about Chicago being Make America Great Again country, that does not happen in Chicago. So if Jesse, stays the attack, he's dead wrong because he's receiving all the attention. And we just had a 1-year-old child, a toddler shot in the head named Baby Chase, and he's not getting any attention. And we have a 14 to 16% homicide clearance rate. And if Jesse is guilty of the charges, he's dead wrong because he's taking much needed attention from a serious problem in Chicago.
Mark, pick up on that for a moment. 24 police officers were apparently assigned to this Smollett case. 24. And as Tio said, and we had a chance to meet Tio when we did our special in Chicago some months back, that is an appallingly low rate of solved murders in the city. Yet, you got 24 people in total assigned to this case?
Well, Laura, just not 24 people. You have 24 detectives, and taking 24 detectives off of their caseload, taking them away from cases that are actually happening while they're doing this Smollett case is just absurd. I have never seen 24 detectives on anything short of a serial killer case. That is obscene amount of detectives for this kind of a case, but the city officials wanted this out of the press as quickly as possible, so they wanted the suspects arrested and move on as quickly as possible. I understand that, but once they started investigating this, they started uncovering exactly what it was. They knew it was a hoax, as your guest would just described. This smelled from the beginning. It didn't look like a street crime. They didn't act like a street crime. Nothing about it was a street crime.
But let's go back to why this happened, though. Mark, you're 100% right. Tio's right. But why were so many in the country at large, beyond the confines of Streeterville and maybe Englewood and South Side LA, Chicago, why were so many people willing to buy into this, Tio? Because when I think
that's easy.
Go ahead, Mark, and then Tio.
Right.
Mark,
that's easy. I mean,
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, Mark. Go ahead, and then Tio.
It's easy to see exactly how this happened. When you've been on the street, you understand what things look like, what they feel like, what the sense of the crime. And when you're not, when you're removed, when you're a celebrity or a politician, and you're removed from everything that happens in the real world, then you're going to buy into it because it fits your agenda and you're willing to jump in with both feet because it's what you want to hear. You want to champion somebody for your cause.
Yeah. Tio, I want to play something from the Good Morning America interview that Smollett did about whether people would have believed him more if he were not black. Let's watch.
I don't need some MAGA hat as the cherry on top of some racist sundae. It feels like if I had said it was a Muslim or a Mexican or someone black, I feel like the doubters would have supported me a lot much more.
The good news is that the
Senate... And that says a lot about the place that we are in our country right now.
Okay, so that's it. He's talking about the perpetrators, Tio. So he was making a statement about the country as a whole, and that I find to be probably the most offensive thing about this, in addition to taking all the time away from the police. Tio.
Well, right now, Jesse needs some help. He's crying out for help. Something else is going on. Normally, when people act out like this, it's just a symptom of a major problem. And I would like to suggest that Terrence Howard, who plays his father on Empire, now he may have to serve as a role model, father-like figure in real life to Jesse, because right now something else is going on. I've been in Chicago all my life, and like I said, I've never ever heard of an attack like this. And Jesse should stop playing games with the people if he's wrong. alone because he owes everybody in Chicago an apology due to the fact that we have people that are shot every day in Chicago, people that are killed at least every other day in Chicago. Right now, from January 2019 until today, we have about 35 people have been killed in Chicago. Where's the news at about people being killed? He's taking resources from much-needed communities where violence is running rampant out here. So justice wrong.
I'm frankly not. Let me just say this, guys, to both of you. I'm not interested in his cry for help. I am interested in the cry for help from the family of that 1-year-old child who was killed.
Yes.
So Jesse's cry for help, I'm not frankly all that thrilled to talk about. I'm not really worried about him. He'll figure it out. But I am worried about the people, Mark, who don't get the benefit of the news coverage and the focus that he managed to galvanize because his political narrative fit what the left-wing media and the celebrity culture demanded. Mark, close it out.
I couldn't agree with you more. We really don't care why Mr. Smollett decided to do this, to create this hoax. We don't really care what his career was, either in the downward spiral or he was worried about being replaced. It really doesn't matter. It doesn't matter why. But it does matter that he thinks that he is more important than the people of Chicago, the people of the United States, the president, every detective that's working a case, every person that's on the police department that has had to take their time and energy to solve a crime that the victim actually created himself. It's disgusting.
It is just, they've got to throw the book at people who do this because it has a toxic, poisonous effect on our discourse, and it's an attempt to tar this country in a very ominous, terrible light, and it is infuriating on so many levels. There are real hate crimes out there, and this was obviously a fraud. Both of you, thank you so much. Coming up, could the black cloud of the Mueller probe be lifted as early as next week? We're going to tell you exactly what the end of the Russia investigation really means, plus a new development to our reporting from last night of a former Alabama woman begging to come back to the U.S. after becoming an ISIS bride. Isn't that sweet? Did our show have a role? Well, that's next.
Tonight, Fox News Alert, huge breaking news tonight in the Jussie Smollett case. Prosecutors are now charging the Empire actor with felony disorderly conduct for filing a false police report. And look at this headline from tomorrow's New York Post. Brutal. Joining us now with reaction is trial attorney Rebecca Rose Woodland and Fox News contributor, well, I think we're going to get to in a second, Dan Bongino is with us. Rose, let me start. I read this off the top of my head. Felony disorderly conduct. Now, I know that's legal speak in this case for filing a false police report, but we now know we have the videotape of the two people that say he paid them money buying the very items that were used in the attack, and those two people went before a grand jury today before these charges were filed.
I mean, we do have grand jury indicting. In Illinois, that's required for any case that there will be possible prison term. Here, he's facing 1 to 3 years, but his attorneys have issued a statement, and I think it is important to say he does have a presumption of innocence,
Absolutely.
as does everyone else. Possibly these two concocted the whole scheme and claim he did, but maybe they were the ones that did it. I'm not saying that. Based on what we have so far, that's not looking good for Smollett, but there is always a possibility that he is innocent, so I think we should take a step back. Let's see how the case proceeds.
It doesn't look good for him, I'll tell you that. Dan, we'll get to you in a second. First, joining us from Chicago is Rafer Weigel. I fired him last night, but, apparently you're taking heat for doing a news report on my show in Chicago. Gee, I'm sorry. But you've been great on this show.
No, I really appreciate you having me on. Thank you, Sean. I'm grateful to be coming back on.
I do apologize for mispronouncing your name, but I think I'm just going to do it on purpose from now on. But go ahead.
No, I mean, listen, it was good TV, but no, as you said, Sean, this does not look good for Jussie Smollett. Chicago police are essentially now accusing him publicly of making the entire thing up, and it looks like we can now start to use the word that police asked us not to use before, and that being hoax. Smollett's legal team and prosecutors met today for several hours at the Cook County Courthouse trying to work out some kind of an agreement. No agreement was reached, and therefore prosecutors put the grand jury in play. The two brothers, Abel and Ola Osendero, testified before that grand jury, their attorney telling me no plea deal was reached. They were not granted immunity. Abel and Ola Osendero testified before that grand jury, their attorney telling me no plea deal was reached. They were not granted immunity because they did nothing wrong. Meanwhile, the evidence seems to mount that these two brothers did stage this event. We got surveillance video, Fox 32, obtaining surveillance video from a beauty supply store showing these two men walking into this store buying a red hat, ski masks, and the date of this video was January 28th. That is the day before the incident is reported. So the brothers are cooperating with police, saying Smollett put them up to it. Smollett says that they're the ones lying. The brother's attorney says Smollett's the one not telling the truth. Take a listen. Jesse Smollett says they're lying. What do you say to that?
I think Jesse Smollett should come clear because the truth will set him free.
And that was me asking her that question. Let's give the statement from Jesse Smollett's legal team, which we got about an hour ago. Like any other citizen, Mr. Smollett enjoys the presumption of innocence, particularly when there has been an investigation like this, one where information, both true and false, has been repeatedly leaked. Given these circumstances, we intend to conduct a thorough investigation and to mount an aggressive defense. As your other guest said, a Class 4 felony, that could be 1 to 3 years in prison. Jesse Smollett is due in bond court tomorrow at 1:30. The question is, will he show up? If he doesn't, there will be a warrant issued for his arrest. Sean?
All right, Ray Weigel reporting in Chicago tonight. Thank you for that report. We bring back in Rebecca Rose Woodland and Dan Bongino. This is really sounding more and more if the testimony is true. I do want to give due process, but it's not looking good, Dan Bongino. Is this a hate crime hoax in the making? And consider all the examples I mentioned with Lynn Wood. The media, it sounds similar. They want to believe the worst about Donald Trump and his supporters.
Yeah, I mean, the list of hoaxes goes on and on. That doesn't mean racism and hate crimes don't exist. It just means the ones that have garnered significant media attention over the network that actually covered this case fairly from the start and didn't jump the gun. But remember, Sean, due process doesn't mean we can't think about this critically like reasonable human beings. And that's what I think you, I, and a lot of other people did from the start when there were questions, fair questions to ask. Sean, I was a street cop in the 7-5 precinct in East New York, Brooklyn. I used to walk a post at from 6 o'clock at night to 2 o'clock in the morning. You see a couple of guys on a relatively empty street in an industrial area at 2 o'clock in the morning with bleach and a noose, wearing MAGA hats with no one else around. It may not be reasonable suspicion to pull them over, but it's probably worth giving them an extra look. Nobody thought this was unusual, this story, that some people just were carrying around bleach in the middle of the night to randomly attack an actor. And in this show, it just...
In a 4-degree weather
minor
and a
amount
storm.
of critical thinking would have...
I did what I did.
Red flags should have went off everywhere.
Rebecca, I did what I did in the Zimmerman Trayvon case. I actually went there and talked to the people. In the Ducal Cross case, I talked to some of the parents and some of the kids. When the rest of the mob rushed to judgment, they're wrong so often. Now, when do they start getting held accountable? Because you look at the Smollett case, you look at these Covington kids and Nicholas Sandmann, there's a lot of similarities here.
A lot of similarities, Sean. I remember I was here for the Duke case with you. I was here for Trayvon Martin with you.
You were on the right side with me. That's right.
And what's unfortunate here is if Jesse did this, why? Why are you playing into such hate, such negativity, when there's such an opportunity now to bring people together?
But but the media has a narrative. And the reason the media jumps and they don't look, like, it would have taken them 6 seconds to find out the truth in the Nicholas Sandmann case.
Oh, I know.
Not even a phone call did these people make. They're going to lose. Lynn Wood is going to destroy every one of these big media outlets. I guarantee it. It's a slam dunk, and they will all pay.
Sure. And in this situation, we should have that again. I mean, there is no reason why everyone has to jump to judgment with the MAGA hat. It is ridiculous.
15 last seconds. Dan.
Sean, listen, you asked who's going to hold the media accountable. It's already happening. The court of public opinion is all that matters, and very few people trust the media anymore like they used to 50 or 60 years ago.
Thank you both. When we come back, huge breaking news on the deep state. Get this. Turns out the FBI's top lawyer wanted to charge Hillary Clinton. Sarah Carter, John Sullivan have the latest. And also later tonight, former CBS reporter Lara Logan risking her career exposing media bias. That's straight ahead.
He's a tremendous man, a tremendous person who really respects this country and respects the Justice Department. So that'll be totally up to him.
Yeah, and by the way, Democrats, Janet Reno, Eric Holder, they were pushing that. President Trump earlier today making it clear that it is up to the Attorney General, William Barr, on whatever release or no release of Mueller's findings. Tonight we do have major developments, Hannity watch on the deep state, unelected bureaucrats caught trying to undermine President Trump. First, to prevent him from getting elected, and then to undermine his election and undo the will of the American people and their blind loyalty to James Comey. All right, with our reports tonight, Sarah Carter and John Sullivan reporting. Former top FBI lawyer James Baker believed the Clintons' use of a private server was, in fact, enough to secure an indictment and charge her for violations under the Espionage Act. And I'll add, deleting subpoenaed emails is another thing. Baker suspiciously changes his mind after discussions with Comey. Of course, a Clinton lover and other senior officials. Remember, it was disgraced FBI official Andrew McCabe ramped up his efforts to undermine the president after Comey was fired in May of 2017. Oh, and don't forget, well, maybe we'll tape the president. Maybe we'll invoke the 25th Amendment. Here now, the Hill's John Solomon with his report also about a possible third dirty dossier. Yep, Bruce Orr's wife, Nellie. Yeah, she produced it. John Solomon from The Hill and Fox News contributor, Sarah Carter, investigative reporter. Sarah, let's start with the FBI issue first. And both you and John report this, that Baker originally believed what we all know is a fact. Hillary Clinton committed a felony that was the violation of the Espionage Act, and I believe obstruction of justice after, and they rigged the investigation.
Yeah, Sean, what's so fascinating about Baker's testimony is that he's going through this back and forth with John Ratcliffe out of Texas, who's questioning him about this. And he specifically states that he absolutely believed from the beginning, when he went through this binder, he was basically given a binder with the classified emails, with documents. He was appalled. He didn't see any other way around it but to charge Hillary Clinton. And he continued to battle, according to his own testimony, with people in his office, along with Comey as well. He had these arguments going back and forth until the very end. And it wasn't until the very end that he changed his mind. But more importantly, when Ratcliffe questions him again, and he says, "Do you still believe it is appalling what happened, the mishandling of these classified documents," which Baker himself describes as highly classified documents, he said yes. He basically said yes. Even to this day, he believes it was appalling. I think the question is, why at the very end did he jump
the answer
and
is
change?
they wrote an exoneration in May.
That's right.
Strzok, who said Clinton should win $100 million to zero, he conducted the interview. The fix was in. She got away with stuff no other American citizen could ever get away with. And then the dossier, the Russian lies, ironically, never investigated, lying to the FISA court, then using it to sabotage and unseat a duly elected president. John Solomon, you report on this as well as the third dossier, produced by Nellie Orr, Bruce's wife.
Yeah, I'm really struck today, Sean, early in the show, you talked about how much the story shifted on Covington, how much it shifted on the attack in Chicago. Think about how much these two stories on Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump have shifted from what the media originally reported, what we now know today. For a long time, the FBI said everyone was in unanimity about not charging Hillary Clinton. Now we find out to the very last minute James Baker was fighting and disagreeing with that decision. And when we started, we were told that the Trump investigation had to be open because there was actionable foreign intelligence suggesting he was compromised. Now we know that intelligence was nothing more than Christopher Steele and Sidney Blumenthal, and now the wife of Bruce Orr, Nellie Orr. After learning what Christopher Steele sent to the FBI, I report that Bruce Orr told the Congress his wife put her own dossier together, put it on a memory stick, gave it to him, and he routed it to the FBI, despite the fact that there are conflict of interest rules that say justice officials should never get involved in cases where their spouse has a financial interest. It's remarkable. This story has evolved so much.
We only have a small sampling of all these interviews. We don't. There's so much information. Do you both agree with me? Exit question. That, in fact, when everything comes out, there's at least probably a dozen people that should be charged here? Sarah?
Yes, absolutely, if not more.
If not more, how many more?
Yeah,
I would say definitely between 12 and 20.
And John?
Yep, the House Republicans who did all these interviews, they're preparing criminal referrals right now. I'm told
gotta be
at
released.
least 9 they're going to make right off the bat.
All right,
yeah,
real quick. John, you have sources in the special counsel's office. What are you hearing about what will be in this report supposedly released next week? Real quick.
I think that the end is near, and I think there will be no charges against the president recommended.
No Russia collusion. 2 years. Wow. Of media lies, the mob mentality. You guys have been phenomenal. We started 2 years ago this March. Both of you breaking open this story. You both deserve credit. All right, our next guest, stay tuned, caused quite a stir. Former CBS 60 Minutes reporter Lara Logan is here to explain just how the anti-Trump mainstream media truly is, even risking her total career in doing so. Next.
Is mostly liberal, not just in the US. But in this country, 85% of journalists are registered Democrats. So that's just a fact. We have few conventions, if you like, because they're not really rules, but that you need at least 2 first-hand sources for something, right? Those things help keep you, keep your work to a certain standard. Those standards are out the window. I mean, you read one story after another or hear it, and it's all based on one anonymous administration official, a former administration official, right? I mean, that's not journalism. That is absolute.
It is absolute horse. All right, former 60 Minutes correspondent journalist Lara Logan bravely stating what so many people already know about the mob media's liberal bias. She didn't mince words. She told the truth, even risking political career suicide in the process. Lara joins us now. Great to see you. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Sean.
Just so you know, just so people know, how many years did you spend out with our troops in Iraq and Afghanistan? How many tours of duty, years, months?
Well, I lived in Iraq for 5 years. I lived in Afghanistan for a year, and I went to Afghanistan dozens and dozens and dozens of times, and I've been back to Iraq. Before I lived there, I was there under Saddam Hussein. So, I mean, I was pretty much on the battlefield most of the time from 9/11, and it's only been since I had my children that I've kind of, and of course, since I was almost killed in Egypt, that I've sort of
I want to remind people, you nearly died in Tahrir Square in Egypt in the Arab Spring. Geraldo told me, I never knew this, that he had a video of your vehicle getting hit with an IED. I never knew that story. Is that's true?
Yes, that's true. I think it was way back in like 2003 when we were blown up by a double anti-tank mine on the Afghan-Pakistani border at a place called Lozano Ridge. And Geraldo and his brother were a few vehicles behind us in the convoy. And Sean, you know how incredible this is? In those days, the United States military did not even have armored Humvees on the battlefield. If you think about what that context brings... They didn't even have armor on their vehicles. They didn't even think they needed it.
Wrong. So wrong. And I bring this up because, wow, you risked your life to report. And I watched you on 60 Minutes. I always thought you did a great job. And you say this, which is just a fact and it's chronicled. And look at the media today. I say I'm a talk show host. I say I also do opinion and news and investigative reporting. I do it all. And 85%, I think it's closer to 90, that are liberal, and you can see it. And you say you need two sources. That's so far gone. Why, if you tell the truth like that, do you believe you just pretty much committed career suicide?
Well, it's obvious, right? Because you get targeted, and it's the same group of people. They're already starting to target me again now, and I expected it. And, I was joking that I'm braced for fire and fury because I know they're going to come after me again, and I'm not the only one. I mean, the same people come after you, right? One of them, the Sparrow Project. I mean, this person was tweeting today, Hannity, watch out about Lara Logan stuff, right? And there's more coming. Michael Calderon, who was at the Huffington Post. I can literally give you the script now. I can tell you who the players are. Joe Hagan, Brian Stelter. I mean, it's the same people all the time, and they're all saying the same things. And they come after Cheryl Atkinson. They come after you. They come after me. I mean, if there are any independent voices out there, if there are any journalists who are not beating the same drum and giving the same talking points, then we pay the price. And if they can't, what's interesting, Sean? They can't take down the substance of what you're saying, right? They can't go after the things that matter. So they smear you personally. They go after your integrity. They go after your reputation as a person and as a professional, and they'll stop at nothing. So, I'm not the only one, and I'm just I'm done, right? I'm tired of it. And they don't get to write my story anymore. They don't get to speak for me. I want to say loudly and clearly to anybody who's listening, I am not owned. Nobody owns me, right? I'm not owned by the left.
I don't even know what your politics are. I really don't. I don't know where.
Because it doesn't matter. Because it doesn't matter. I'm not going to lie to you and pretend I have no biases. That's just not true, right? I mean, that's a part of who we are as human beings. We all have opinions on things. I don't pretend I don't have opinions. My point about the sources is that I've worked with so many great journalists. I can tell you many of their names. Sarah Carter is one of them, right? I have so much respect for her work. And there are so many people at 60 Minutes and in many other places who I have such great respect for. And it's because I didn't invent this. Journalists have always needed two independent, first-hand sources. That's always been the standard that we work to. It's not me. I'm not alone. I'm not the only one. And, people know. People know that we've slipped. People know that when you're not, when those are no longer your standards, that that raises questions if you're honest.
I would love. I've met your husband, who I don't know if he's going to like I'm saying this, who's really an American hero, and I know you guys are raising your kid. I mean this sincerely. I hope my bosses at Fox find a place for you. I know that you want to still do great work and independent, and I think it would be a service if you did. I hope that you telling truth doesn't end up in career suicide for you. We need the fair, honest, investigative voices. The people that do.
What's funny, I heard one of your paid people on Fox saying that it sounded like a job interview to me, and then going on to put a whole lot of words in my mouth that actually I never said. Let's just be honest. Look at the interview, hear what I said, and then listen to him, and you can see I didn't say that. I don't need to fall back into dishonesty. And by the way, it's not a job interview, right? I don't know if Fox would want to hire me because nobody's going to own me.
But I got to run. You keep up the good work.
Family Taco Night is a heartburn night.
All right, our villain of the day tonight has really earned this title. Hoda Muthana moved to Syria to marry a member of ISIS from Alabama. Now she wants to come back to the U.S. She's not even a U.S. citizen. The president responded to her request on Twitter. I have instructed Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. He fully agrees. She's not coming back. All right, we are not the hate mob Trump media. And let not your heart be troubled. There's Laura Ingraham. I didn't have time for the mail again. I'm so bad at showtime management.
I miss the Hannity